Howdy, everybody. Welcome back. Continuation of the LEMUIRA members series here. Long delay to my members. And thank you for your patience. And those who will see this further down the line, I hope you're enjoying these monthly series. I'm still tossing around a few ideas for next month, and we're getting close. I have one more episode to record in the LEMUIRA series. Not really wrapping it up, but kind of tying it all in. And then I'm tossing around three separate ideas. So I'll announce that in the last video. But yeah, again, appreciate your patience. Appreciate you being members. Um, yeah, I'm going to be looking to revise the members um, program or whatever you want to call it, idea moving forward after next month. I'm working on a podcast that I'm going to tie in with the members series um, or member subscription, whatever you want to call it. But again, it's appreciate you all so much. Hope you're enjoying this series. Let's get right into it. Time is precious. This is going to be kind of a bridge in material. And yeah, you'll see why. This is from the Birmingham Age Herald, January 1923. And the title is Does a Lost Continent Lie Buried Beneath Easter Island? And like we do with most of these full page ones, or at least anyone with good graphics here, we're going to zoom in and read the captions before we get into the good meat. Curious ancient wood carving found in the possession of the present inhabitants of Easter Island. Now, if you've watched my Easter Island episodes, there's probably 2 or 3 of them now. They show the natives there have no idea how these statues got there or who built them, and that they carved these idols in representation of the stone statues. Yet they have no history of them. Here in the middle, it says map shows Easter Island in detail, giving the route of paymaster William J. Thompson, USN, who explored it in 1886, and showing its position in the southern Pacific. Here it says decorated wooden paddle used by the Polynesian Easter Islanders of today. And right here it says stone god found at Easter Island by paymaster Thompson. Stone God. I apologize again. You know how it is with these photocopies. The quality is not the best, but at least there are images. Here on this top part, it says images standing at the base of the outer slope of the volcano Rana Roraka, the site of the principal ancient quarries, marked by a cross on the map. To the right, one of the best preserved stone images. So it's hard to see, but the cross is right here. And you can see there are actually several cones on the island, but I believe 2 were the most active, these 2 on each end here. And as I've postulated in some of my other Easter Island videos, and I have had some other Pacific mysteries of the Pacific, we're going to do more of those. I'm going to cover more islands in the Pacific that, like Easter Island, I believe were the tips of higher land of Lemuria. Thus, the correlation here between the episodes. Down here at the bottom, we're going to zoom in so you guys can see a little bit better. Carved tablet found by Paymaster Thompson. According to an old Easter Island native, the words represent an ancient religious hymn beginning as follows. What power has the great king on land? He has power to make the plants grow and to change the sky to different colors. All hail the power of the great king, who makes us lenient to the young plants to admire the skies of different colors and to behold the sounds or clouds sounds or clouds that rise. And then the last one we'll read is right here. It says South American stone idol, whose striking resemblance to the Easter Island images leads investigators to the conclusion that the ancient race of people who carved it was closely affiliated with the stoneworkers of Easter Island. And this connects nicely with the beginning of this series and the Queen of Atlanta, or Queen of Lemuria, who fled after being persecuted. And yeah, the story is she fled Mexico and went to Egypt, but I think she fled Lemuria and went to the Yucatan. And we'll cover more of that ground as we get into our Mexico series. It's one of the three ideas I'm batting around for the members series for next month. But it just kind of, I don't know, I got to feel it out. So be patient on that announcement expected on the last episode. We're starting right up here, guys. And we'll zoom in so you can see it nice. An immense continent with millions of inhabitants, a great unknown civilization, a brilliant empire of the past, all destroyed by earthquake, fire, and flood. Engulfed in the ocean, such is the deluge drama that has been revealed by two independent investigations of the enigmas of Easter Island. A tiny volcanic speck emerging out of the lonely Pacific, 2,300 miles off the coast of Chile and 1,500 miles removed from the nearest inhabited country. Since its discovery by Admiral Roggeveen in 1772, this isle has been a constant source of stimulation to the minds and activities of archaeologists and to the imaginings of romancers of every description. For there, on the slopes which face the boundless ocean, carved out of the porous rock of which the island is largely composed, stand, stand huge platforms from 20 to 30 feet wide and high and hundreds of feet in length. No cement has been used in their construction, but the blocks of which they are built are perfectly shaped and joined together. Even more remarkable than these platforms are the great stone statues which surmount them, some upright, some overthrown and shattered, some only partly carved. They are enormous images, grotesque human busts ranging from 5 to 68 feet in height and looking out over the sea with inscrutable, unseen eyes. Right here in the middle. What ancient race of people produced these remarkable examples of sculpture? Surely not the Polynesians who now dwell on Easter Island, for they have no knowledge of stone carving and took upon the ancient statues as the handiwork of the gods. This enigma has for several years occupied the attention of two investigators in particular. Professor Macmillan Brown, a noted antipodine scientific worker, and Mr. Frank Burnett, an archaeologist who has spent the last 25 years in the South Seas in South America. Both of these scholars working independently have recently returned to civilization. Professor Brown, coming directly from Easter Island, reached Sydney, Australia on August 30th, and Mr. Burnett, who had followed the trail of the evidence to South America, emerged at Vancouver a few days later. Both have issued statements summarizing their work on the problem, and both have arrived at the amazing conclusion that the Easter Island remains point unmistakably to a great Pacific continent, to an empire and a civilization which were completely wiped out and submerged under the sea by some vast cataclysm. From the state of certain images left unfinished in a particular manner, reads Professor Brown's brief and recently cabled statement in part, it seems almost indubitable that an abrupt abandonment of the work must have taken place. A lost continent, a vanished empire, a civilization wiped out and reposing on the ocean's bottom. It recalls a story first related by the Greek philosopher Plato, who had it from certain Egyptian scientists that 9,000 years before the time of Solon, ancient lawgiver of Athens, there existed a vast country just outside the Strait of Gibraltar, a country whose inhabitants had evolved a perfect form of government, which under which everyone was happy and contented. The name of this country was Atlantis, and the Atlanteans overran and subdued all the Mediterranean nations, except Athens. They came a tremendous cataclysm, and Atlantis, a land as large as Asia Minor and Libya combined, suddenly sank with all its palaces and people into the ocean now called the Atlantic. During the 24 centuries since Plato's death, there has been unceasing speculation concerning the possible germ of truth that may have formed the foundation of Plato's story, but nothing can be proved. We have no facts, no remains, only visions such as the submerged city of splendor that Jules Verne has drawn for us in his pseudo-scientific tale, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. But the authentic reports of Professor Brown and Mr. Burnett regarding Easter Island at once seem to translate the old legend not only from the Atlantic to the Pacific, but also from the realm of fancy and romance to the domain of fact and history. The facts, according to the two men who have worked thousands of miles apart and unknown to each other, are briefly as follows. In certain sections of South America, there exist traces of a civilization that is certainly older than that of the Incas, the Indians whom the first European explorers found on their arrival in the 16th century. These traces are of various kinds. First, there is the Nahuatl language, which cannot be traced to any known source, and which therefore seems to be the audible relic of an extremely ancient and independent tongue. In the second place, the writings of the prehistoric South Americans are different from those of any other known race, ancient or modern. The same is true of the pre-Columbian ruins found in the Yucatan. Furthermore, skulls belonging to men who existed in South America at least 500 years before its discovery were brought back recently by Professor Marshall Sevier of Columbia University. Teeth in these skulls were found to be filled with an alloy and crowned with metallic caps, which are equal to the best modern dental work. Finally, there are the examples of statuary and sculpture of ancient South America, which resemble nothing in the world except the stone bust found on Easter Island. The inevitable conclusion to be drawn is that a vast stretch of land once connected what is now the Chilean coast and the Western Isles. Mr. Burnett has summed up the evidence in the following declaration. For my part, having seen the Easter Island sculptures and those at the ruins of Tiahuanaco near Lake Titicaca, Tiahuanaca, my apologies, near Lake Titicaca in South America, I am in favor of the theory that they are both the handiwork of a race that inhabited South America and the eastern groups of the South Pacific, when the latter comprised a great land area, a race that existed and passed away ages before the rise of the Inca Empire and before the Polynesians left their Asiatic home on their great journey eastward to the Pacific Sea. About the only difference between the images at Tiwanaku and those on Easter Island consists in the design of the ear. At the former place, the organ is depicted in natural shape, while on Easter Island the lobe is greatly distended. From all available facts, I am fully in agreement with Professor Brown when he states that a sudden abandonment of the work came, probably with the cutting off of supplies. The workmen might possibly have eaten each other, as there is nothing to show that they were not cannibalistic. The abandonment was very abrupt, for a number of almost completed images are left attached to the rock face out of which they were being carved. Much of them may still be seen in the crater in an unfinished state. The design is invariably that of a human body, terminating at the hips, with the arms held close to the sides. The head is flat in shape and is surmounted by a red crown carved from a different stone found in another crater. The bodies are composed of solid gray lava obtained from the crater of Hoti Iti. To reconstruct a very bare outline of the history of the lost Pacific continent is now a particularly difficult task. Many ages ago, such a continent harbored a people skilled in arts refinements to some extent, at least, a peoples whose religious belief caused them to erect mounds, platforms, and images. Then came a tremendous physical upheaval. The western bulk of the continent sank into the ocean, leaving only the peak of one of its highest volcanoes above the surface. But this peak, now known as Easter Island, has preserved for future ages the mute evidence of the empire that has passed away. Yeah, fantastic. So this article was written before they fully excavated some of these statues. And as he stated clearly there, he says that they terminated at the hip. But lo and behold, they found several that did not. And I'm going to get into one of those with you here in just a second. Um, it's going to be part of a longer article, but there's a lot of good stuff here that I want to cover. And it's really important because we're going to get into some astronomical references. We're going to talk about um, what else we're going to find on the South Pacific Islands and why that's important. And that all of these South Pacific Islands, not all, but many of them are interconnected. And I believe, and as I've been kind of presenting here, this points to a mother continent. And I'm going to I'm going to relay this last article here, and then we're going to talk about a excerpt I posted discussing the name of the sun god of Lemuria and how it was Ra or Rama or Ramu. And yeah, this connects with the Brahmin. Now, the Brahmin correlation again exists very strongly in Mexico as well. But yeah, so we're going to show this one really quick. This is from 1899. Okay, so what is that? 24 years, which is a long time. And you can see this was removed, the statue. But just look at that. Can I zoom out more? I can. Okay, that's too far. Look at that though. It was I think there was only two statues with legs showing. Check this out. Amazing. So basically what he was saying was they were all the statues only went to the hips, but they've dug down to the bottom of at least 12, I believe now, and shown that it goes down to the knees, if not farther. And that the majority of the statues have been buried in 10 to 20 feet of earth or mud or whatever. So this island may have stayed above the current sea level, but let me tell you, it was absolutely slammed by something. It's either I'm going to go with it's a wave and it's volcanic. And yeah, we'll zoom in here a little bit. Um, this will be another full video, but it won't be part of the member series because I'm going to correlate it to some other material in the Yucatan. But we're just going to read like the first 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs here. So, like I said, 1899, Stone Giants of the South Seas. An expedition of the National Museum of Washington has just returned to this country after carefully exploring the homes of the ancient people that constructed the idols. Recent exploration on Easter Island, that mysterious volcanic rock in the southern Pacific, where such wonderful stone giants and other prehistoric relics are found, has resulted in a number of very interesting discoveries to be described in a forthcoming bulletin of the National Museum by Dr. George H. Cook, a surgeon in the United States Navy. An expedition led by him made a complete examination of this notable bit of terra firma, which is situated nearly on the line of the Tropic of Capricorn, 2,100 miles due west from the South American coast. His party did considerable digging for the purpose of trying to obtain evidence that would throw light upon the origin of the colossi referred to, but all that could be unearthed was skeletons. There were numerous caverns literally filled with human bones, and beneath the platforms on which the stone giants formerly stood were chambers filled with skeletons. The whole island, indeed, was a vast charnel house, and one subterranean vault of great size contained an immense deposit consisting exclusively of skulls. The situation on Easter Island, in the trackless waste of the Pacific, is singularly lonely. The nearest, let me zoom in for you guys. I apologize. I know it's easier for me to see than for you. The nearest land being 1,100 miles to the westward. It is only 13 miles long by 7 miles in width, and scarcely a tree grows upon it. Nevertheless, it had formerly a very numerous population, estimated at not less than 20,000, and the puzzle is to the image what became of these people, who, judging from the astonishing accumulation of skeletons, must have held occupancy for a great length of time. They seem to have been of a race altogether different from that of present inhabitants, and among various arts they practiced the sculpture of gigantic statues of stone, and like of which have never been found in any other part of the world. The quarries in which these colossi were hewn from solid rock remain today just as they were left by the prehistoric artists, whose work seems to have been brought to a sudden stop by a calamity that overwhelmed the island and wiped out nearly everything living on it. The voyager who might have approached Easter Island 400 years ago would have witnessed a remarkable spectacle. He would have beheld a place at intervals along the shore, great platforms of hewn stone, and on them rows of stone statues with their faces toward the sea, as if representing so many tutelary divinities keeping eternal watch upon the ocean in behalf of the islanders. On one of these platforms, he might have counted 15 such colossi, and 40 to 60 feet in height. This, indeed, was the platform known as Tongarika, the largest and most imposing of all. It was 8 feet in height, 9 feet wide, and 540 feet long. Today, the platforms remain, but all the statues have been thrown down and lie scattered about. In front of each platform is a wide paved space, apparently designed to afford standing room for a considerable multitude. It was formerly supposed that the statues were gods, worshipped as idols, but it now appears that they were merely represented chiefs and other distinguished personages, being, in fact, portraits in stone, some of them evidently females. Whichever their sex, they commonly wore on their heads cylinder-shaped crowns of a reddish volcanic tufa, which separately weighed 2 or 3 tons apiece. The figures themselves, each having the form of the upper half of a human being, are of gray lava. The whole island being of volcanic origin, there is no lack of this material, which is rather soft and therefore well adapted for carving with the stone tool evidently employed by the prehistoric artists. No fewer than 555 of the statues have been found. The platforms on which they originally stood usually contained chambers filled with skeletons. The bodies of the dead, consigned to these sepulchres, having been wrapped in dried grass and laid with their heads toward the ocean. In some instances, the platforms were provided with great oven-like receptaces, which may have been utilized, as have been surmised for a cannibal feast on a large scale. So yeah, I just wanted to cover that because it talked about the subterranean tunnels. So this whole island is covered in subterranean tunnels, and thousands of skeletons were found. We're going to check out a little bit of this art or the drawings they made of these prehistoric skulls. You can see they carved in the skulls. Pretty interesting. Here are some of the stone idols. Here's some of the representation. The double-headed bird is just amazing. You know, you know, the one that's used today on the herald of many families. But yeah, I just wanted to show this image too. Very interesting. Removed, of course. Wow. Yeah. So the last little part here, we're gonna hop on my Twitter really quick, and I'm just gonna read a small little excerpt um, from a book I've been reading. I had read before, but again, thanks for being here. Hope you're enjoying the material. The scientific confirmation of old legends can be as thrilling as psychic visions proved correct. The actress Shirley MacLaine, during one of the past life dreams she experienced while on pilgrimage in Spain, learned that the capital of Lemuria was called Ramu and was located in the Hawaiian Islands. She was unacquainted with the works of Colonel James Churchward, but her vision closely paralleled his explanation of the motherland's political power center, as described by his biographer, Hans Stefan Santiezen. When elected to be the king, this heraldic head assumed the title of Ra. Now, that can't be a coincidence. The sun, Ra, being the king's symbol. To this title, Churchwood tells us, was added the name of the land, Mu, so that the king's full title, the reference here is presumably to his dynastic title, was Ra Mu. In Hawaiian myth itself, the firstborn of Ra'ai, the sun goddess, was Muri, ancestor of the island's earliest inhabitants. A simple transposition of Muri to Ramu and the solar identity of both versions defines a credible connection. A Malaysian tale recounts that a man went to the plains of the Ramu River, where a goddess in the guise of an old hag gave him a coconut that turned into a beautiful woman. After she became his wife, all the bachelors obtained similarly magical coconuts, and thus New Guinea was populated. Ramu not only features the name of the Pacific motherland, but that of the sun god worshipped there as well. Yeah, so, correlating back to Colonel James Churchward, who we mentioned a little bit earlier, um, yeah, and what he was discussing here. Um, what's really interesting as well that I didn't really touch on too much was that you can find a whole lot of amazing overlays. So not only were the bodies wrapped in grass with their head facing the water, that was a common practice that existed here in America. And in fact, many of my mummies in the Anomalous America series show this same effect. But I think one of these episodes further down the road, or just a short non-members episode, I'm going to show and correlate a lot of these carvings to some runes and some petroglyphs in the Americas, and show you that these peoples were everywhere. South America, Mexico, North America, and more. So yeah, that ends it for this episode. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for being patient. Appreciate you guys all so much. Again, stay tuned for next week. I'll be letting everybody know what next month's series will be in regards to. And be sure to, leave a comment if you have one. And I look forward to hearing from you all. Have a wonderful day.